Chief Business Development Officer at Ideas, and a man who claims to have built the first ever CDN, along with at least 85 other engineers who have told me exactly the same thing. Yeah, exactly, there we go. Also founder of Greening of Streaming, the non-profit that somehow made it into the Houses of Parliament. Yeah. But much like Guy Fawkes, didn't quite manage to blow the place up. Oh dear, oh dear. Dom once took me to, I feel like a kind of best man speech. Dom once took me to a steakhouse in Belgium, despite knowing full well that I don't eat meat, which tells you everything you need to know about his commitment to sustainable practices. Dom, anything to add?
Good steak.
Salad bar was decent, actually. Yeah. Good salad, good. Anything to add? Is that okay? Is that okay?
No,
perfect. Excellent. All right, Lisa Collins is Managing Director of Dovetail Creative. And Lisa has the most LinkedIn followers of anyone on this panel, by the way. So we've got an actual influencer here, which is amazing. I did a bit of stalking, Lisa, and according to your profile, you are currently juggling 7 different ventures. I believe you've founded or co-founded maybe 5 of those, which is amazing. So well done. You make everyone feel a little bit inadequate. But you're here today mainly, wearing the Media Tech Sustainability Summit hat.
Correct.
And we're very glad to have you. Series Summit hat, sorry. We're very glad to have you, especially since we couldn't get Barbara Lang.
Oh, thanks.
I'm so sorry. I had to. I'm sorry.
For sustainable reasons, I'm here, not
I'm sorry. And finally, Matt Stagg, everyone. So on with the panel. No, seriously, Matt Stagg has been a pillar of mobile and video for forever. And honestly, I have no idea what Matt's sustainable credentials are. So in environment sustainability. So we're about to find out, I guess. So yeah, all right. And I like the audience to be interactive. So if anyone wants to throw up a hand and get involved, then let me know. And I thought I'd instead of the usual question format, I'd kind of throw out some statements this time around and see if people agree, disagree. People in the audience want to put up your hands, agree, disagree, then great. So first statement is, traditional broadcast is more energy efficient than streaming and should therefore be prioritised and subsidised. Hands up for anyone who disagrees. Yes. Anyone on the panel disagree?
Yeah, I disagree.
Yeah.
You yeah? Was that a hand,
Yeah.
Dom?
Totally.
Okay, all right, fly in. Go.
Oh, go on. Are you going to...
No, I have a different view, but you guys... yeah.
Broadcasting is really efficient if you want to do broadcasting. You just can't do anything else with it.
Yeah, you can't
So
you can't
If you want to turn off
personalise.
the internet and build a broadcast network and then build another telephone network and then another one for YouTube, another one, then that's probably, each one's probably very efficient, but it's a pretty inefficient way to go about building a sustainable infrastructure. So consolidating onto one infrastructure will inevitably bring benefits over replicating that entire thing for each use case. So there is absolutely no way that broadcast is more sustainable than streaming in general terms for getting messages out.
The answer is yes, and I obviously support that. I was taking it literally, as in, is broadcast a more sustainable form of delivery? And yes, it is. But of course, live is dying. You can't build an architecture, as you said about 2 architectures. You can't build one for Premier League and another one for streaming. So yes, it's going, but in answer to the question, it's more sustainable. But it's got to go anywhere.
I would sit in the middle and think about hybrid models as well, and look at both. You have to think about the viewer. The viewers are changing. Younger people want to stream their content. They don't want to watch traditional broadcast. That's my view on it.
Turning off a 15 kilowatt transmitter in the centre of London to stop you broadcasting the Freeview mucks isn't going to change the internet's energy. But you'll still be able to watch Freeview on the internet.
Has anyone ever said that Greening of Streaming as a name, I know you don't work for them strictly anymore, is in itself an oxymoron?
How do you mean?
Greening of streaming. Can you green streaming?
I was hoping you were going to explain what an oxymoron was.
You're sitting too along for one. No, I think there are. I think there are wins to be had. I think the important thing is, first of all, to try to understand what we're doing, and we haven't got a fucking clue. And we need to get that measured so that we can talk about it sensibly. And at the moment, nobody's having a sensible conversation because they're making everything up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's no education and there's no data.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Hands up, anyone in the audience who's a member of Greening and Streaming? Any members here? One! And he works in the same company. That doesn't count. That's not good enough. That's not good enough, guys. Well, Neil kind of counts. He kind of counts. Yeah. That's it. That segues us nicely into the next statement. I kind of know the answer to this already, but 4K and beyond will drive up energy and bandwidth use with marginal benefits to viewers. Hands up for agree?
Sorry, energy and bandwidth?
Energy and bandwidth use.
Well, if we can separate those
Yeah,
two,
that's probably a better question, isn't it, actually? Yeah.
It will drive up bandwidth, but it won't drive up energy. Because bandwidth doesn't relate to energy. Availability relates to energy, but bandwidth doesn't relate to energy. Nice, simple for the accountants who account in gigabytes to sit there and add another column and go, we'll make up a finger in the air conversion from gigabytes to energy. But that's made up. It doesn't have any correlation to the reality. The reality is the networks use energy for making their services available, just to be available. Sending data over them or not, all you're doing is modulating a signal that exists anyway, so you're not actually changing the energy. It's a complete and utter misunderstanding that's rife across the industry that there is a correlation between data sent over a network and energy.
Mm-hmm. When you started Greening and Streaming, wasn't there the kind of idea was that all the networks were over provisioned and like all the energy usage was coming from the networks and the infrastructure and the switches and everything, and I feel like towards the end there was a complete like pivot, and Greening and Streaming started looking at the end user devices, which is not what you set out to do. So
we definitely got pulled to the end user devices because they're much more sexy. There's a desperation in sustainability to create circularity, to get the responsibility passed to the end users. If you want to be conspiratorial about it, that really stems from attributional modelling, which essentially draws arbitrary circles, puts people in it, and makes them fight over who's using the least energy. But all the while, they're not looking at the size of the circle, and they're not looking at the consequence of the changes. So most of the efforts that are going on in sustainability are a complete waste of time at the moment.
Okay. Who thinks 8K is a good idea?
It doesn't make any difference, same problem.
And does the viewer care?
Yeah, absolutely unsustainable anyway in terms of an industry, because everything's run on devices. You are not, I mean, you look at the amount of 4K that you've got out there, the density of 4K, even 4K TVs is quite low comparatively, and you know, some channels aren't even in HD yet, you know, so absolutely 8K I would say no. If you want to look and watch a football match before it's there and see a butterfly on the I did see that when we did a trial on the centre circle, then yes, but I absolutely think that it obviously is, and this is how the business runs. It's run by consumer devices manufacturers because they have to do something else to make you buy a new TV, but you will never produce content as a broadcaster or a content provider at 4K unless you've got enough, or unless you have the cameras anyway, which is a very different thing because you can just film it.
Yes, yes, Rich. Yes, please.
Exactly that. Yes. Like consumer devices, like you've hit the nail on the head, but also we're being sold like 8K GoPros, shit like that, and then our phones can do it. And most of the content that we're consuming apparently is being uploaded to YouTube, and the way in which people uploading it differentiate themselves is by quality. So we've got loads of 4K and 8K generally, but the film and television world isn't keeping up with that. It's my. I don't really know what
I agree with that.
Yeah,
but it's a question more than
I think from a sustainability point of view, that's really bad. You know, the fact that someone can not even know that they're uploading 4K
Absolutely.
video and someone's going to download it.
I sent
On a-
a 4K video to my mum the other day.
But it comes back down to education, you know.
And now that mobiles don't have, you get an all-you-can-eat policy or a contract, sorry. It makes no difference. You wouldn't know. If you were paying for that, you'd go, shit, man, there's no way. Oh, I'll make sure that's standard definition because I'm sending a video to my mum. And I think that's a lot of, can we look at stuff that we can turn off and then sort of opt in kind of thing. So you have to say, oh, I want a 4K. I would never because I've got
Let's not make it available anyway.
shitty complexion. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say to counter that is we get so focused on this circularity on involving the end user and making them feel responsible, whereas it's the industry's decision
Absolutely.
what we do with the availability of the networks and so
You're
on.
totally right.
You know, your 4K content, I can't think of anywhere it uses more energy in the pipeline, apart from maybe storage, but we're not incrementing, we're not growing the storage relative to how much content we want to store. We're growing the storage relative to how much content we expect to store. So it's it's availability and service level agreement. Service level agreement was without a doubt where we can make the biggest difference in the industry. We stop expecting 9 nines on every 13th league football game and have multiplied redundancy to deliver that. We set expectations lower, which in the creator economy, expectations are actually just naturally lower. They expect a bit of buffering or whatever, but they'll put up with it because it's tuned to them, it's coming from a wide variety of sources. Nobody complains if YouTube buffers once in a while. If it happens and ruins your program for an hour, yeah, but if it happens once in a while, it's not the critical make or break thing. TV, everyone goes apoplectic if you lose a frame of video that nobody notices it's being lost. So, you know, I think these are it's that over provisioning that's been even if that's not in network, if that's 8K, you know, you're being sold 8K. It's kind of a service level agreement that's being sold at 9 nines when you don't need more than 2 nines because you only watch it for half an hour a week or whatever.
Yeah. On SLAs, let's move on. There's a waving hand at the back. Is it Ben? Is it?
It's Ben, yeah. I saw a stat the other day. So Prime Day on Amazon was last week, and the best-selling product, so I heard, I've not verified this, was the Fire Stick HD, not the Fire Stick 4K, but the Fire Stick HD.
Okay.
So do the consumers care, and is the 4K, 8K thing just a vanity product for the media industry?
It is.
Yeah.
I think so. I saw the same article.
It might have been Tommy who shared that, actually.
Because we strive.
Yeah, no, I think.
You guys strive for the best quality that you can possibly get because that's what is in your blood. But when it comes down to the consumer, they don't actually care.
Yeah, I think it is different from a sports perspective. Sport is very different because you are always going to the biggest screen possible, and there is a value in having that resolution for high-paced, fast sport that you're already spending shitloads of money on. And I think, I'm not saying we've gone off whether that's environmentally friendly, but that's the only place I see there is for high resolution, high frame rate, HDR, that kind of thing.
I think, it's inevitable that you want to produce in high quality as possible. Distribution is a completely different question.
Yes.
And I think it's entirely down to the economics, really. Sustainability you're just not making a difference. 9 times out of 10, you're not making a difference in distribution.
But when we talk about agreement of streaming, are we really only talking about when you distribute? Because surely if you're sort of a direct-to-consumer, there's actually a load of sustainability values or issues before that. And it's, in terms of us and when we talk about it, is it only we're looking at the where you start to stream the CDN and the end user devices, or is there a way that you can measure a stream from lens to lens?
That absolutely is not a way you can measure.
But that's what you're trying to achieve.
And that's the problem is, when we started grading and streaming, we were looking at the whole picture. Lots of people talking about the consumer device, but they thought that this big fluffy cloud was just a bit of magic, and they had no idea that if if you trace it all the way back down to your telephone lamp on the top of the telegraph pole, that's 400 watts. And you've got a green cab with another kilowatt, and then you've got another 13 of those before the exchange, where you've got probably 20 or 30 megawatts being burned. That's before you press play.
Yep.
And that's the problem, is that availability and the responsiveness of those networks to spin up and spin down. In a world of software-defined networks, I'd like to see a single software-defined network.
And what actually turns
One
on
that
when
goes
it's
scales
supposed
down.
to?
Everyone's brilliant at auto-scaling up.
Yeah.
Not a CDN in the world is good at spinning down.
No, it's
Because
provisioning.
they're terrified. They've got 400 servers with one user on left after 2 hours after the match. They're terrified about turning those servers off. There's no load concentration skills. There's no focus on scaling down, because it only affects the bottom line, and it's just not interesting to anyone.
Funny, you didn't say that when we did this panel with someone from Akamai. We sat next to you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so hats off to Akamai. They're the one company which, over 4 years of running Greening and Streaming, stood out to me as being just light years ahead of anyone in terms of actually doing something about their commitment. Everyone else talks it up but doesn't stand on it. And Akamai, Ramesh is one of the co-founders. He's intensely focused on bringing solar and renewable into all of their micro pops. There's two reasons for that. One is they absolutely want to become more efficient. And the other is that Microsoft's bought all the renewable energy, so you simply can't launch a POP at the moment. You can't buy the energy. You've got a 5-10 year wait, because all the renewable energy commits have been bought by Microsoft to put into their data centres. That's why Northern Europe has no green energy available to any data centres. And there's loads of other complexities in that as well. You know, you can't source renewable energy when it's being curtailed. This was one of the things that saddened me most, and probably one of the precipitate reasons why I sort of blew up and had to hand the reins of Greening and Streaming to Ben, because we were really close to putting racks and racks of ultimately would have been Akamai servers into wind turbines. You've had 90 of them in a wind turbine. That's already had its concrete sunk. It's got loads of capacity, and for micropops, there's loads of wind turbines all over the place. They've all got fibre for control systems, so it's a perfect environment. Problem is, when at 4 in the morning they get curtailed because they're overproducing renewable energy, the fossil fuel powers already committed to the national grid to supply the energy, and if you start trying to access the curtailed renewable energy to do local processing of, you know, video on demand transcodes or something in a wind turbine overnight, you're undermining the energy markets. So the fossil fuel lobby prevents you from accessing that, and they shut the curtailed energy off. It's inaccessible to anyone, and they power it all with with fossil fuel. So there is no will in the system to actually change. There's a lot of greenwashing, there's a lot of statistics which keep everyone busy, nobody's doing anything. I mean, we couldn't get any practical experiments underway. We tried for, 4 years to try and put measurement out across networks, and then we turn that plan around and say, okay, help us build model networks. Can't find 10 grand to get those sort of lab experiments. Want to write a report, if you're Deloitte and you want to write a report for Amazon about how green their cloud is, £1 million falls out of the sky instantly. Want to do some practical experiments to see if it's true, please fuck off. And that's the bottom line. It's that frustrating. It's that difficult out there. There is no real will to change. Everyone just wants someone else to write a report to say, it's changed, everyone's fine, planet's not going to burn.
But that's why it has to start with the leaders of our industry who have to, yeah, absolutely.
You've just stolen the next statement, Lisa,
Sorry, I'm
which
sorry.
is sustainability will never scale without a culture shift from the top. There's a few C-suites here, so I'm sure no one is going to disagree with that statement. But not publicly anyway. But yeah, as someone who works for a very small company, less than 10 people, then we don't really have a top. So, but big organisations. Lisa, probably one for you.
No, you can count the industry leaders on one hand who are really invested in this. Everybody, it's middle management that are looking at it. But for anything to really change, it's got to start from the top, because it needs to be embedded across the whole entire industry. We need the cash to do the experiments, the hackathons, and that's never ever going to come if it doesn't come from the leaders. And I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand. And they're only going to get it and understand when the workforce of tomorrow say, hey, I don't want to work for a company like you, thanks very much.
Do you want to point some fingers? Who doesn't get it? Which leader here doesn't?
Sustainability doesn't have an ROI.
No.
That's its problem, it doesn't have an ROI.
But it will do eventually.
Yeah, although the metrics are complicated. But I think that is, it matters when it affects your marketing. If people's opinion affects your share price, then it can matter, and I think that's where Akamai's invested, and I think it is making a difference. But so many companies just, they start off saying we're going to be sustainable, and then they discover they've got to do something, and they walk quietly away from it.
Well, yeah, but you take it to the CFO, don't you, and say, if we do this, we'll get this much in Net Promoter Score. That's why we need to invest in this. And that is the conversation.
Yeah.
If we don't do anything, we don't have to change anything, and it won't change anything on your bottom line. And it's very difficult unless you have a very hard-nosed CEO that says you have to have your objectives and your bonus come from this. So if you're the CFO, this comes from this. I want to know exactly what you've done, how much you have invested in this. But it's very difficult, isn't it? Because also then the CEO accounts to the shareholders. So do we say the shareholders have to have an investment in this? Of course not. You know, like you're not, your pension's in it, you know. Like,
Well, the CFO is going to have a different story. Talking about Europe, not America, with CSRD reporting coming in. You know, they have to report. CSRD is a European reporting that only companies over a certain threshold have to report on, but it's going to come down the line to smaller organisations. So if you want to do business in Europe, you are going to have to report on it, and eventually.
It's 50 million turnover plus at the moment, and it's
oh
dropping
wow,
slowly.
I didn't know that.
But the problem is that the reporting scales are all based on ADAM and RCEP's measurements, which are based on DIMPAC's measurements, which were based on usage equals its sustainability. So it's myopic, and it ignores the availability. Hence all the carbon calculators that you see on the clouds. They might give you an indication based on your usage, but they give you absolutely no information about all the stuff you're not using in the cloud that's waiting to be used, which is completely invisible. So
well, everyone thinks, regardless of the buying models and how the cloud works, that still everything that isn't being used isn't going on. Like, forget about the fact that you buy stuff up front and you know have all these different models within Azure and AWS. Is everybody thinks it's in the cloud, brilliant. If it's not a Premier League match, it costs nothing. It's not using any power or anything. But because of models and availability models for different companies, some will just keep it up, keep it spinning.
The one thing to call out is 5V are a B Corp organisation, I believe, if I've got that right. And, you know, we want to hear more from B Corps. We've got very few B Corps in our industry, and, you know, they're striving to be the best, and we want to hear from them about what they're doing, because their reporting is right there at the very top. It has to be to keep that certification.
All right. Okay, next statement. We're running out of time, so this might have to be the last one. So this is such a weird one. Ad-supported video is greener than subscription video. No. I don't know.
No,
would anyone in the room agree with that? Would anyone agree with that?
No.
Good. But that's, I don't, it's so weird because there's not enough, I don't even know.
It's higher data transfer, isn't it?
No, it's the same. It's just the difference between a subscriber and an ad service is a subscriber service will sit there going, we're losing money because it's a gym membership. They ideally want you to pay and not watch anything. So 2 episodes in, they'll pop up a thing saying, are you still watching? To try to encourage you to turn off if you're not watching. Whereas if you're on a subscriber fast service or an ad-driven service, they don't care if you're dead. They just want to keep it.
But doesn't the content tend to be longer, so the data transfer is higher?
The data transfer doesn't matter. It's about how long you leave the TV on.
Yeah.
And how you even go about measuring if someone sees an ad and then buys that product.
One thing that's really
and then
burning the energy, the backlights in the TVs.
Yeah.
That's doesn't affect resolution, it doesn't affect anything to do with streaming. It's the backlight in the TV. It's like variation on the backlight, sort of in our experiment, sort of ranges from 30 to 180 watts, based on how bright it is, how bright the picture is, and so on. That's what makes a difference. You know, black or dark mode UX, much better for sustainability, because you do get dimming zones which can bring the energy down significantly. But in terms of the 2 watts in the decoder, whether it's 2 watts or 1.98 watts, because it's decoding a slightly different format of video, it's really not where the saving is. The saving is what you're doing on the screen. What are they called?
Should we make darker films?
Well, I want to say, I'm going to name the company wrong and then get killed.
No, Rich, do you remember what happened with the?
That's insane. There are films. So the filmmaker mode that got introduced a couple of years ago, that's caught our eye in greening and streaming, because we do believe, one of the things we initially looked at was the idea of green buttons. People talking about green buttons, switch it into economy mode. Nobody does that because it's crap, it looks shit.
Filmmaker.
What we should do is launch the streams looking crap and shit, and if you're happy with it, just Peppa Pig and your 2-year-old on the floor, let them watch it crap and shit. If it's
double pass.
That's great. But if you want to watch the game at UHD at full screen, blah blah blah, opt into it interactively, watch the game, and at the end of the game it will knock you back down unless you want to watch the studio stuff and you press it again. So that interactivity would make a huge difference as long as you keep dropping it.
But it's about education again, isn't it?
Which is a form of education, isn't it? So there is so filmmaker mode appeared as a way to modify the TV set. It takes you through the streaming up into the middleware of the TV.
What it's doing is reducing what the TV set's doing.
Exactly. So filmmaker mode probably has other forks that you could take it on to use to do things like you can't affect the brightness of the viewer's screen from the IP layer.
Right.
You can't do it. There's no book to do that. But if you can do, but filmmaker starts to become something that's some way a signalling to the network that you can leverage to go, actually I want to go to green filmmaker mode or whatever it may be, then you can start to modify what the hardware is physically doing and bring the dimming zones down and change what's going on.
But you think about the user experience, who would, like, honestly, are there many people that would do that?
If they were educated,
no
yeah.
one will opt into a green mode.
Yeah.
Everyone will opt into an orange mode, or a yellow mode if they're coming from bullshit Peppa Pig to high quality.
Yes.
Mode. That's what we're proposing is
Okay.
gold buttons. So you bump it
up
up when you're going to show the game to the pub.
Sorry.
That's all right, mate. Keep going. Stir the pot.
I missed the head.
That's great.
No, I was just asking if anyone even knew what filmmaker mode was. Like in
I
our
do.
house.
Yeah.
Of course.
Exactly. I've worked hard to make my TV take more power because by default it's shit. The HDR makes everything look dark with energy saving mode on, so you have to change all the settings to turn all that stuff.
Ed, that's terrible.
And make my TV look how I want them to look. Well,
To be
I've turned HDR on.
I've got a Jenny out the back.
Something was supposed to happen at 7, but it's rubbed off my hand. So I don't know. I don't know what it was. I have no idea what was supposed to happen at 7. But I'm just going to open it up to the audience. Any more questions, guys, before we wrap up? Otherwise, I might throw one more to Dom, which is, why did you really leave or stand back from greening and streaming? Did you hand Ben a sinking ship?
So I was on.
Can we really trust a Frenchman?
So I was on. So I think the second question. I think we need to let Ben take the time to actually change the culture of greening and streaming. I was very myopic about some specific things which come from 30 years working with CDN, and that most of the people who arrived weren't that focused on that specific area. They were coming from kind of goodwill more than anything else, and so. I think Ben's giving greening and streaming the platform to adjust and change and broaden its scope a bit, which I think it probably needed to do. That wasn't something I was keen to do. The other side of it was in the autumn last year. There were so many panel sessions. The year before last, I did 27 conferences in a year. It was enough. Sitting across stages from people from KPMG, Deloitte, the big 4 accountancy firms, it made my flesh creep, and I literally was getting to the point where I wasn't going to represent my members very well by getting up and ripping their fucking heads off live. And I was that angry that I realised it was going to destroy the good that was in greening and streaming, and I needed to take myself away from that front line because I am that angry about it. Spent 4 years on that front line trying to make the industry go, take it seriously, do it properly, rather than make shit up on.
I think it's a frustrating place. It's a frustrating
insane.
place to be our industry. Across any other industries, they're making real good strides in sustainability. Our industry has to be one of the worst, and they're just not on board. And I get Dom's frustrations.
It's insane.
Kick that can down the road. Someone else will deal with it. EVs will deal with it. They are actually looking at other industries to solve our problems.
Yeah. When I did my first webcast in 1996, my 2 computers were all the streaming energy in the UK. That was it. There was no other streaming going on, as far as I know, at that point. Now it's like probably somewhere between 3 and 8% of the UK's electricity.
Really?
It's fucking loads of electricity. And we can't get people to talk properly about it. And I kind of thought, well, I kind of felt like one of the pioneers of the industry, brought this in. Suddenly we're using like as much electricity as maybe the airline industry or the other comparisons. I'm woolly about those because I think they're real numbers to make those comparisons. And so it's a huge amount of impact. And I kind of wanted to look at my kids and go, I'm really proud of what I did with streaming, but I also wanted to make sure it was done consciously and sort of responsibly. And I just found that most of the industry want to do that, but the information coming into the industry and the money taken out of supplying that crap information is draining any resource from the industry actually doing something that makes a difference. And I think that's sad.
Me too.
It really depresses me. And there was a certain point where I just had to go, fine, I'm going to go and make my company hugely successful, which of course we're doing, and I'm going to buy my yacht and go and live in the Antarctic and ignore the apocalypse.
Wow. What a note to end on, I think.
Lots of sound bites.
Yeah. Great. Anything to add? Any more questions from the audience? If not, we'll head to the bar and then come back in 10, 15 minutes. Cool. All right.
Do you need a crew?
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Adam?
Always need help.
You won't be on it, because I'm going to knock him off before he gets there.
Will we still wish we had the broadcast system when the zombie apocalypse comes?
Yes.
I think you'll still
It's the
be
kind
there.
of question.
I went
DAB
straight
plus
to Zombie Apocalypse when he mentioned his yacht and going off. It's very
Trust me,
strange.
you won't catch me below my knees anywhere near water anyway, so the yacht was a joke.
I can't believe Matt Stagg drank my beer. It's the last time you get invited to a panel.